In the past and the present, there's things called powwows. Powwows are a spiritual Native American gathering in which there are many skilled dancers that dance and other people that play different instruments, such as the drum. For me, my tribe originates from the Ojibwe tribe. Another thing that Native Americans believe in are spirits. But today, we see less people talking about spirits and no powwows. This is because of the COVID-19 pandemic and because the Native American tribes are dying out. You see, the United States are trying to make you think this is the great, great nation. But if you look at the past of Native American harshness in the U.S., it doesn't look so great now. I will be talking about 3 chapters, the past, the present, and the future of Native Americans, with articles such as Coming to America, History.com's article, Broken Treaties with the Native Americans, a timeline, to a short poem about Native American suffering by Allison Alder Hedge Cook. With that, I present to you Moving Native Americans. Oh my god! Can you believe this? For a long time, most people believed that Christopher Columbus was the first to discover America, the first to make a successful round-trip voyage to the Americas. But in recent years, new evidence has came to light through our understanding of history has changed. We now know that Christopher Columbus was among one of the last explorers to reach America, not the first. 500 years before Columbus, a darling band of Vikings, led by Leif Erikson, set foot on a North American continent and established a settlement. Long before that, some scholars say the Americans seem to have been visited by seafaring travelers from China, possibly by visitors from Africa and even Ice Age Europe. You gotta be kidding me! This is not fair! The historical record about inbounds and examples of conquerors murdering and tormenting Native American populations, and these horrors are far too numerous to list here. Defenders of Indies Fray Barla de las Casas listed many of them in his belief of devastation of the Indies. Oh my god. Oh my god. The year is 1775 and the American Revolutionary War just broke out. Then, oh my god, the Revolutionary War did not just determine the future of American colonies, it also shaped the future of the Native Americans who were living there, around them. The Native Americans were not passive observers in the conflict, while most Native communities wanted to remain neutral in the fighting between the Crown and the colonists. As the war continued, many of them had to make different decisions, such as how and support which side were on the other. From 1832 to 1871, American Indian nations were considered domestic dependent tribes. Negotiation treaties between the tribes and the U.S. have been approved by U.S. Congress. No! In 1861, the Cherokee Nation in the West, numbered 21,000, was experiencing its own internal civil war. The nation divided, with one side leading to Principal Chief John Ross and other by regret stay white. Although Ross vowed to remain neutral, Confederate victories at First Manassas and Wilson Creek forced Cherokee to reassess their position. The federal government, who had abandoned Indian territories early in the war, all the Native American nations on the Cherokee border were Confederate, leaving the nation vulnerable to Confederate occupation. At the end of 1830, nearly 1,200 Native Americans living on millions of acres of land in Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, and Florida, land their ancestors have occupied and cultivated for generations. By the end of the decade, very few natives remain anywhere in the southeast United States. Working on behalf of white settlers wanting to grow cotton in the Indians' land, the federal government forced them hundreds of miles of specially designed Indian territory across the Mississippi River. This difficult and deadly journey was now known as the Trail of Tears. The Snyder Act of 1924 admitted Native Americans born in the U.S. to full U.S. citizenship. The 15th Amendment, passed in 1870, granted all U.S. citizens the right to vote regardless of the race. It wasn't until the Snyder Act that Native Americans were given the enjoyment rights granted by the U.S. by this amendment. Oh my God! It's a miracle. A code talker is given the name to Native American Indians who use their tribal language to send secret communications in the battlefield. Most people have heard of the famous Navajo tribe. Navajo code talkers who use their traditional language to submit secret Allied messages during the Pacific Theater of World War II. I cried this country to sleep. My song grew roses in each tear fall. My blood-veined rivers painted pipestone quarries. Breaking news. In 2020, the number of people who identified as Native Americans and Alaska Natives alone, with a combination of another race, was 9.7 million. With another race from 5.2 million in 2010. They have now accounted for 2.9% of people all living in the U.S. Back over to you, Ron. Native American poverty does not fit image many of life has excluded, depleted reservations. Most Native Americans now live in cities where most of them are still trying to get used to urban life. Native Americans face a 27% poverty rate and are still trying to revise some of their lasting effects in federal policies that has put them at a disadvantage for hundreds of years. Though federal government paid for relocation expenses to the cities and provided some vocation training, urban Native Americans face high levels of job discrimination and few opportunities for job advancements. If my work does nothing else, at the end of my life, I want to see Native Americans be seen as human beings.